we bring to you HR experts covering various subdomains of HR, like OD, training, compensation, POSH, psychometric assessments, etc. These experts, both individuals and companies, are available for booking on our platform developed by our partner superpro.ai. You can find all these experts on the experts page of our website, therecruiters.net. We also have with us our collaboration partner, superpro.ai's co-founder and CEO, Mr. Gaurav Tripathi, an alumnus of IIT Bombay, who will join me in asking questions with our HR expert. Our expert today is Mr. Vipin Arora, an alumnus of XLRI Jamshedpur 1995 batch. He has headed HR in large organizations like Honeywell, where he also held the role of compensation director for Asia Pacific region. He now is the managing director of an HR consulting firm he founded called Invoke HR Solutions. Vipin is our guest today, and with him, we will explore the domain of compensation strategy. Welcome, Vipin. Over to you. Can you tell us something about yourself, and also what do we mean by the term compensation strategy? So,
Okay, first of all, thanks for inviting me on this discussion, and it's always a pleasure to talk with the fellow professionals. To give a little bit of background about myself, I have about 25 years of experience in HR, and I have worked in various domains of HR. Worked in manufacturing industry, and then later on, when BPO was the sunrise sector, and later on in the technology sector, worked in India and also in the Asia Pacific roles. My stint with compensation was about 6 years when I was with Honeywell, and I was looking after compensation for diverse industry types for Honeywell, both for India and ASEAN region, which includes some of these countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore. So that has been the area time when I have really spent a lot of time with compensation aspects. And though I was always interested in earlier in my career as well. And I left my corporate career last year and then started my own HR advisory company, which is into end-to-end domain. And there we are supporting in all aspects of HR consulting, including compensation and benefits as well. So that's a brief intro. I'm based out of Gurgaon, and I have a small family, my wife and son, and we. That's a little bit about myself.
And for the audience, benefit of the audience, we have worked together. So yeah, was also a pleasure working together. So
Yeah,
yes.
that's true. That's true. Absolutely.
So, compensation strategy. Coming to that now, what do you exactly mean when you say for a layman or for even for an HR professional, what does that entail?
Okay, so compensation strategy. Let me try to break it up. So let's say there are two words: compensation and strategy. Let me pick up the strategy part first. So strategy by design actually means it's a plan of action for a long-term goal, where we are trying to look at something which is in long-term and a bigger goal, bigger aim that we are trying to achieve. We use strategy a lot in military, right? And that's where we talk about war strategy and all. So it's a little long-term. So that's the difference between a plan and a strategy, mostly. Now, coming to compensation, when we talk about compensation strategy, actually it includes every aspect of compensation. So it's not only the salaries, it's everything related to that. Compensation could be the fixed compensation, the variable compensation, it could be long-term incentives, it could be benefits, it could be retirement related aspects, rewards, recognition, wellness. So it's a big area. And all this incorporates compensation strategy. And it is very, very important for any organization to have a well-defined compensation strategy. One of the key area why it's extremely important is that, or let me put it this way, this is what we understand by compensation strategy. Then what actually it means? What actually it means is it's a kind of formal written down kind of document which talks about these aspects for the organization, which also talks about maybe the core philosophy, the organization principles, how this entire compensation related area or would be looked at in terms of the long-term strategy to support business goals. So that's how the entire thing comes together, and we call it's a compensation strategy. So I hope I answered little long. Shantanu, I guess you are on mute. Can't hear you.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. So how do you frame a compensation strategy?
Okay, I would put it this way. As a person who is tasked to frame a compensation strategy, first of all, it's important to know why it's so important and for whom it's so important. So for employees, it's very important because they get the idea of the company's philosophy about the strategy. So there could be various aspects that we may try to list down. Say, for example, it can highlight what is the level of transparency they can expect, what is the level of fairness they can expect, what is the level of linkage to some of the core principles, let's say the seniority or maybe the performance that they can expect there. So that's why it is extremely important that that it has to be framed properly. Similarly for organization, so that it's not person dependent at any point of time.
Correct.
Organization for years is working together in a framework. That's why it's important to define. Now, if with that kind of perspective, then comes that how do we really define it? Now, uh, the strategy for compensation has to be linked to the business strategy and HR strategy. So the first step for designing a comp strategy is basically starting to think about what is the organizational culture, what it stands for, what is the business strategy that it is deploying to be a differentiator or maybe a good business, and then what is the HR strategy to align with that business strategy. So, for example, a business has a strategy to grow maybe X number of times in next 3 years.
Correct.
What is the HR strategy? From the business strategy flows the HR strategy. HR strategy could be we should have our best of the people in this field who will help the company grow.
Correct.
Then comes the comp strategy. If I want best of the people, perhaps how do I attract them? Should I do something in terms of maybe paying maybe higher money or maybe giving them the right kind of benefits or something else? So that's where it comes in the I would say
Which means
in terms of the
choosing
process.
choosing where you want to peg the company in terms of your median. Like, are you in the which area when you sort of benchmark where do you want your company to be? What are the philosophies in terms of benefits, or probably you want to incorporate, and then as you said, gender, probably all these factors together, seniority, merit, incentivize, be aggressive in terms of strategy that don't uh, not really bother so much about probably attrition, but take care of uh, or you can probably bother about attrition and change salaries just to retain someone, because some companies can say, okay, no, I will not increase salary even if somebody's leaving, because that's a fair benchmark. So all those decisions.
Absolutely. And I think, again, while I would again try to delink some kind of actions with the strategy, so I will still try to maybe stay at a very high level at this stage for the strategy.
Sure.
So in that sense, once we look at the culture, the second important point for us is actually what do we want to reward in the organization?
Correct.
See, some companies may say that I want, let's say, I want results. Hook or crook, you get the results. So I want to reward results. Another organization may say, for me, the team working is extremely important. So what type of behavior do I want to reward? So one part is definitely the business strategy. The second part is organization has a typical culture or maybe a kind of way the organization wants to operate. So what do I really want to reward? The
Correct.
third part also sometimes that comes in the strategies, what is actually your landscape of the talent, what kind of people do you have now, because it will also change from the industry type and maybe the demographics and multiple other things, what is the tenure, what are the things. So that will also become one of the pillars in deciding the strategy. And then comes another extremely important factor on top of everything, that there's a difference between what I wish to do and what I can do. So what is the affordability of my
Yeah, of
company to
course.
really do something?
Yes.
So with all those good things,
Yeah.
at the end of it, what is that I can afford?
You
And
can't
then
leave
create
the
the
company
strategy.
to sort of retain or attract talent. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
Correct. Correct. So how do
right.
you decide from that?
And
How do you decide the increment budget? I mean, in that sense. So how does how does an organization do that?
yeah, no, I think that's a very, very good question, and perhaps flows in the same line because we are talking about affordability and all. So I would start more with say uh, saying that, because most of the queries that I get mostly, and many times I've seen informal queries also, that people typically try to ask each other what is the increment you're giving this year. And also the second thing they ask a lot, what is the inflation this year? If you really ask me, I always get these two questions. Most of our informal discussions, typically people try to look at inflation and maybe what is other company giving. Now, I'm not saying anything right or wrong, but what I'm trying to say is that there are more factors than that is important. It's not something which is cut and paste for my company just because some other company is doing something. So let's just take a step again a little higher. So again, we will try to go every time 36,000 feet and then try to come down so that we get the right view.
Sure.
So first thing is, for any person who has worked in multinational company would see that different countries have different merit budgets. So that means same company can have different merit budgets. So there is something definitely which is external in layman's language.
Correct.
Then second part, which is, you may say, in the same country, different companies may have different budgets. So that means there is something internal also. So basically, it's in a very, very simple thing. There are two big buckets in which the factors come in for deciding the merit factors. One is the external. Now, external, while there is a lot of discussion always on inflation, but I would typically say there are three big categories that come in the picture. One is really the macroeconomic indicators. How is the growth of the country? Let's say India is growing at 6, 7%, 9%. We can expect our industry to grow. In the growth economy, I would want to keep a merit budget which is higher because I need to keep on moving fast versus a stagnant economy. So that becomes a factor one. Second is, what is really the market kind of hiring forecast? See, we see all those reports by many companies that let's say one IT company has decided they will hire 5,000 people this year in next 3 months and 6 months. What is going to be the hiring forecast? Because ultimately that's the pool I'm trying to attract.
Yes.
If hiring forecast is very down, very low, I may be able to afford a little bit lesser, but if hiring forecast is very high, then I have to really look at it. The third part is the market data, like you rightly talked about. Market data, what are the companies doing? Where are the companies looking at their own budgets? Because ultimately we are competing in the same industry, same sector. So
competition benchmarking is what you're saying.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Now, so these are the three bigger buckets on the external side. Now, when we look at the internal factors, very important factor is again the affordability, business performance. Are we growing year after year? Is this a stagnant business for a year? And sometimes you may say bigger conglomerates, they may have different budgets for different business units. Sometimes they may or may not choose to, but sometimes they may also say that. The second part is also in terms of where do I want to position myself in the market, like you just pointed out before we started that. But that's the part that comes from the strategy. That do I want to peg myself at the market median? Do I want to peg myself in the upper quartile? Do I want to keep a little lower quartile? So that also changes the dimension. And the third important area is also internally, what is the kind of attrition I'm seeing? Let's say I'm going through a phase of very high attrition. I may want to be more competitive in that particular year because typically we go for annual merit years. So I would say it's a combination of multiple factors. Again, I hope I try to simplify it into some points, but maybe 2-3 broad factors on the macro or external and 2-3 broad factors on the internal side, based on which you may end up creating some kind of number for your organization.
So here is a very naive question. Yeah, so I've been listening to you, but I sense the same question a lot of people will have, especially in startups. So when you say compensation, yes, you mentioned that, yes, money is one part, but does that mean, so compensation is not only money, correct?
Yeah. So ideally, if you look at it, most of the companies have started using the term total rewards. So they have moved away from compensation because typically people related compensation to salary part or maximum salary plus bonus. But that's where they have started moving to the new term, which is total rewards. So total rewards incorporates everything, which is your cash compensations, which is your maybe benefits, the kind of maybe help you give for retirals or wellness, or maybe even the working conditions. So that's where, and typically as an employee, and coming back to perhaps your point, as an employee, when I'm evaluating which organization will I join, I try to look at the bucket. I don't look at only one part. all these things together help me take a decision. And you will see in the market, there are some companies may not be the best paying, but their ability to attract is more because their entire bouquet of rewards is better.
Correct.
So here again, it's so the difference between so if we take the rewards route, does it still mean that when I say CTC, because it is cost to company, does it include everything? Like, it is equivalent to what when I say rewards? Would it be CTC, or there is still a difference?
In fact, this is a very interesting topic, and for me, it's a favorite topic because CTC is one thing that everybody is caught on to, and glad you brought it up. I was thinking maybe towards the end there might be a question on that.
Sorry if I jumped in.
No. I'm just saying that because sometimes, see, CTC is a very our Indian concept, and CTC is not a statutory concept. So laws don't define CTC. And there's no standard definition of CTC. So every company uses CTC the way it wants. So some companies may say CTC includes cash allowance. Somebody may put even the bonus monthly amount in that. Somebody may put a value of insurance premium that they're paid also in CTC. So different parts. But the point here, what I'm trying to say is that for a moment, we should actually, ideally, we should move out of CTC concept, because CTC is only my internal calculation. What is the cost I'm paying in terms of, or cost I'm incurring for having an employee on board, right? Or working in the company. However, if you really look at it from the concept of the total rewards, there are certain things you may be doing which you may not include here. For example, you may have a wellness program. You may say, I have in my organization annual health checkup. Now, you may not want to add 200 rupees split over every month in the CTC. So I think somewhere the typical, and somewhere maybe I'm taking a leap forward slightly, but somewhere I think we should start coming in our annexures of compensation, the total rewards kind of maybe presentation to employees. Perhaps we will be much better positioned to attract the employees rather than putting that Excel sheet with all those components and say, okay, this is what we are offering.
No, I already love it, Vipin, because even I've been thinking, it's like what matters to team members, to employees. Why should anybody bother about really what is the cost to company? I'm not here to, yeah, I mean, I'm interested in what am I getting. So it's really, even the nomenclature, even the terminology, I think it makes a lot of sense and it gives a very, very positive spin. Definitely.
So I think that's a good point. I know, because see, when I get a letter as an employee, and that's again, maybe we are just talking a little more idealistic or whatever. I don't want to see it as a cost, myself as a cost, right? Show me what rewards I get, but don't say cost, my cost to company. So my cost is, say, some 1,000 rupees. Not a very nice term. I would put it that way also.
I think variable pay, Vipin, if you in fact put it rather than putting a number, or you can give illustration saying that if you do achieve this much, and this is the kind of variable pay that you make, and a lot of companies don't even have a limit on it. And I remember the company where both of us worked together. We had the junior most people earning in lakhs in terms of incentives. So that is the kind of thing which we can showcase in a booklet, which can go with the appointment letter, saying these are the benefits, this is the kind of opportunities that you have in this organization in terms of compensation, rewards, benefits, plus all the other things which are there. And of course, Gaurav's point, there would be equity also. So, as a startup ecosystem, equity becomes a major chunk of it. Now, a lot of people don't value it. A lot of probably junior people don't even understand it. That's a whole dimension of it. In fact, I think when I got equity, I also didn't even look at the vesting schedule before shifting companies, and I lost out money. So that's something which is very probably some elaboration or explanation should also go along with this thing. Training.
No, you're very right. Equity also, like you said. See, the point here is, again, that's where the strategy is important. It may not be one size fit all kind of situation. So if and what you're saying is right. I know many times I have seen that again, maybe that discussion where a candidate says, okay, equity, I understand, forget about it, but tell me cash, because that's in hand. I know, I can compare that. Equity, I don't know. Even if I get 3 times, I don't know whether I will get 3 times or 0. But this is in hand. I am just comparing that. So is it really adding value? If it is adding value, great. If it is not adding value, we may need to rethink about the strategy, where to offer, how to offer. Yeah.
So coming to that, the benefit strategy, so compensation was one part of it, and in the rewards function, you have benefits and your compensation both. So what should be the benefit strategy? Again, that draws from the values, and if you want to elaborate on that, Vipin.
So yeah, I think philosophically it would be very similar in terms of like you have to look at what is the organization context, what is the HR strategy and everything. There are certain things which are slightly different in benefits versus compensation. Right. So one of the key part is benefits typically are more inflexible. Because see, it's a
correct
compensation I can change very easily. And I can offer different to different people.
Yes.
Benefits, I may have to see how much of differentiation I can do, maybe person to person.
Yes.
So one, definitely the flexibility is an issue. Flexibility to modify or withdraw is also very less.
Yes.
Because see, that pinches people. So you may say, I am offering medical insurance today, and maybe 3 months down the line, medical insurance is withdrawn. It's not going to be easy at all. Now, you may still be able to play around a little bit with compensation that this year we couldn't afford a lot of stuff. So maybe we are giving 5% increase instead of maybe 6% that we gave last year. People do understand. You have reasonably good flexibility. The other part of benefits is administration. Administration is not easy. You may not be able to get the right kind of cost, right kind of administration, may need technology, multiple things. So there are certain differences. And I think the biggest challenge for benefits is the sustenance. Now, see, and startups, again, maybe Gaurav, again, coming back to your area, startups, I think one of the big challenges in the initial years, there are many times because there is a little bit of cash or funding or something, you may introduce something. But as the organization starts growing up, the cost of benefits may increase so much, and then being inflexible, something which you cannot withdraw easily, that sometimes creates a lot of weight and burden on the company itself. So I think benefits strategy is extremely important. And again, I'm not repeating how it needs to go maybe again from this thing. But what I'm trying to highlight here is more of a difference. Yeah.
So Vipin,
sorry, I couldn't hear you properly.
Larger organization like say a Tata's or a Mahindra's or somebody can have a large benefits and be known as a so as probably it could be used as a differentiator, right? So these organizations are known that okay, probably compensation might they not be the best, but their like the benefit strategy is a benchmark in the market. For example, most of the labor laws precursor to that was what the policies of benefits was introduced by the Tatas. So, in India. So that is something what you have to say on that, Vipin.
No, absolutely. What you're saying is right. And again, benefits can be differentiators and not only bigger, smaller companies can also differentiate on benefits. I think the point that I wanted to highlight in the previous part of the discussion was that benefits need to be designed with more care than compensation. And that's my personal view.
Sure.
Because of the inflexibility, because of the bigger damage it can cause by frequent modifications, right? So that's the part that I would say. I think how it can be differentiator. There are 2-3 things where the companies can play with it. One is need to look at what benefits have a high perceived value, because benefits there is a difference between actual value and perceived value.
Correct.
See, 100 rupees is 100 rupees in terms of compensation, but the fact remains benefits perceived value is different for different people. Yeah. So what are the benefits which are with higher perceived value? Second is it also is a reflection of companies' philosophy. Let's say some companies talk a lot about the employee care that they do. So it is also a reflection. So it's not only that particular benefit, but some benefits also reflect that there is a philosophy. And if you are a company which talks a lot about philosophy, but your benefits are not aligned to that, somewhere people will say that it's only a talk, maybe for magazines or show, but it doesn't reflect. So I think those are the things which are important. And I would say maybe 1 or 2 more points there. One, if possible, see how much flexibility can be there across the demographic population.
Okay.
Now, that is more possible, obviously, for a bigger group.
Mhm.
For a very small company, you may not be able to do it, but for a bigger group, yes.
Yes.
And that's where some of those differentiators can be done. And again, some companies have started creating flexible benefits also, where you may say there's a bouquet of benefits. You can choose, let's say, 3 out of 5, which are very similar costing kind of benefits. But let's say a person who is not married, just straight out of the college, has joined, may not need value, say, medical insurance for the entire family and everything, but may be willing to maybe pick up something else in terms of the benefits, versus maybe a person who is closer to retirement and maybe many other things. But I'm just giving an example. So if we can create some bit of flexibility while maintaining cost and ease of administration, because that's going to be a key challenge, then I think it can work very well as a differentiator as well.
In fact, now I've started seeing some startups which are in the benefits administration. In the sense, for example, you have creches and you have these apps through which people, based on the closest location, they decide, okay, fine, this is attached to this company, kind of a thing. And I recently saw one startup doing that. And so, Vipin, you would be seeing the latest trends that are happening in benefits. Any, especially for startup, any new ideas? What could be benefits which may be interested, which would be perceived as a higher value benefits, as you mentioned? Can you give us some examples of that which are being followed? Probably newer trends which are there in the market. Might help.
So okay, let me try. Let me try to put it this way. Definitely, one thing that you mentioned, the automation. Technology has helped in a big way. Technology has helped in a big way, and again, you may see. Uh, like crashes you talked about, there are other areas also where technology has helped. You may see some companies trying to promote health, and in that they have tied up with, let's say, one of those. Again, I won't take names for
mental wellness apps.
But I would say some of those, even I would say health apps, like say for step counters and maybe things like that, and organize a contest and make it more gamified approach. But so the fact remains, there is a technology, then there is a flexibility and ease of administration, because now there are a lot of consultants or partners who have come up with those unique methods and which facilitate it. So the organization is in a way relieved of the administration burden to really handle it, and you can do it easily and people can work on it. I think one of the big trend, and that's where I think things can be good differentiator, has been on wellness. If you really see off late, and wellness initially started with physical wellness. So if I talk about some time back, it was primarily physical wellness, health. So go a step forward, maybe introduce, let's say, pregnancy care programs, maybe certain other programs, but all was related to physical illness. I think as a next step, some organizations moved towards mental, that they also started those employee assistance program, maybe counseling, somebody is not feeling well and they started recognizing it. But if you really look at it now, the wellness, the new dimensions that have come in terms of maybe, again, some companies again introduce financial wellness. So we will conduct some kind of a program so that people become financially well off. It is also in terms of now spiritual, environmental. This is a multiple dimensions that have got added over a period of time.
Not the one is doing the entire mentorship program, so which means they are introducing a mentor-mentee concept for an organization. So another for clients, and so they are going to take over the entire mentor-mentee. So every new person who joins would be a mentee. Seniors can be part of the mentorship program. It could be cross-organizational. That's another one.
So those are those are definitely the good ones, and those are also the trends that we can find. And I think benefits is one area. Actually, if you ask me, you can be much more creative in benefits area. Personally, I feel that, because there's no end to it. It's just our ability to be creative and use the now in today's world, use the new technology, use the new kind of maybe gamification approaches and other stuff, whatever, and try to get into that. And people, sure, Gaurav.
So you're talking about, of course, there's the whole benefits area. I want to know what's the shift that you have seen due to COVID. Yeah, the benefit strategy pre-COVID and now during COVID. That's there are limitations, and of course, everybody is supposed to still be, majority is still working from home. Yeah, then how do you bring up something where at least the perception is there that yes, the company is still providing me benefits?
I think 2-3 things I would put, and because see, COVID has been a very exceptional kind of scenario, and it has impacted different companies in different ways. So So what happens, and typically all of us, and I've also seen many times in the discussions, we tend to concentrate a lot more on office staff. That's a very small fraction. So if you really look at it, the overall workforce, there's a huge workforce in the field in sales. There's a huge workforce in factories, manufacturing, and maybe many other essential services and areas, plus the office staff. I think for that matter, I would personally say my view is office staff was the least hit in a way because it was still easy. You were working in office, you're still working at home, and then but the issues have been more in terms of the areas which have been manufacturing organizations and all, and that's where completely. And so that's a little bit of challenge because it's a lot about how do you do it versus what you are given. So it's not about 100 rupees given, it's about how that 100 rupees has been given, right? So that recognition is a slightly more softer part, and that's where I think when we were talking about the comp strategy, recognition also has to form part of that kind of thing, that how do we want to recognize and what do we want to recognize. Now, do we want to recognize the same thing that is in the performance appraisal, like you have achieved a particular target, or do we want to recognize, let's say, values, that you have displayed values of the organization or behaviors or something else, or have gone an extra mile or something. So I think that's the part, because recognition starts showing the culture to new employees, because they start seeing what is getting rewarded, what is getting recognized, and recognition plays that part. So now, what you talked about in terms of non-monetary, yes, that's very important, and but again, the same thing is that whether it is monetary, which is maybe a low value or high value, or non-monetary, the presentation is important. And I would not only say presentation, there are other things which are important, which is the timeliness. So if you really look at our own old days, mostly there used to be quarterly town hall and people will come, there will be a big recognition gala kind of maybe event, and then maybe annual event and all. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Even today that happens. But a lot more has started with a lesser kind of...
we also used to have those, a star kind of a thing where somebody would write something and give it to that person on the spot to recognize somebody. Every person could give that. But is there any change in new trends which have come in nowadays in recognition?
No, I would put it though that way. Okay, let me just talk about that part more. That even today, if you really look at those annual and quarterly events are there, but still, I think a lesser frequency kind of thing, which is a faster kind of thing, is more important. And what you talked about, let's say when we used to give that, let's say different kind of maybe peer-to-peer award, if I put it that way, I think that has gained more prominence, and it's also more important.
Because one could stick it on the workstations and show that, okay, how popular. Like we had one guy in our team who was so popular, it was full. I mean, his desk was full, so everybody would automatically feel, oh my god, he's getting so many. I'm not getting a single one.
The other thing is the spot award. Can we try to have some kind of spot awards? Now, spot awards won't be very expensive, but the good part is, see, the person, you catch a person when the person is doing something good and give the spot award. Because it's easy to catch a person in making mistake, but catch a person when somebody is doing something good, and spot awards also work very well. The new thing that has got added over the years, one of the key thing is again the technology. Technology is really helpful.
Yeah.
So ability, and you see these days, you go to the LinkedIn and all these areas, companies are advertising their award winners on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Adding that social group. So it's not only, say, for example, if I get recognized in my company, maybe 50 people know about it. Let's say it's a small company. But the moment I get recognized outside my company, maybe with the people with whom I did the college and the people who know me otherwise in various forums, maybe my partners, maybe even my vendors, suppliers, but so that people know. So it adds a lot more beyond what is there. So social media is a big thing. And for companies which are into multinational scenario where there is a kind of metric structure, vertical, horizontal, and all, this kind of thing helps a lot. The second thing it helps is it also brings somewhere the people together a little. And I will share very basic thing. Let's say a company is a multinational company, multiple locations, but there are teams which are working even across locations. If somebody gets rewarded, it is posted on some kind of social media within the company, let's say intranet. There might be times when some people with whom you have been working earlier or maybe not working these days, they may again congratulate you. So you revive the ties in networking, internal networking also. So I think it has a lot more effectiveness, and this is one of the key things that is there. The other trend is adding more of the experiential part in the reward. So it's not so experiential part when I say is some companies have tried it. Let's say, can I give you something which is aspirational, but you wouldn't have spent money on it? So for example, somebody who is at very junior level, very less salary, maybe I give you a dinner voucher for 5-star because you yourself would not have spent it. But now it is a reward and mandatory because you have to spend it. Perhaps you experience something. The good part of that experience is the whole family will keep on talking about for years. Our company had sent us there. Because this was aspirational for me. So I think those are the things that are that can be utilized more.
Okay. So Vipin, now another thing which is very in discussion right now, and which probably is the statutory changes that are happening in this area. So the code of wages, which is I think still to be notified, I know you would be able to tell the exact status that it is there. What is this code of wages? What are the implications for an organization? How will it impact salary structures of people? If you could, in brief, talk about that.
No, it's actually a very big topic and would go for hours and hours, but I will try to concise in few minutes because I don't want to get too technical. I think, so what government has done is basically it has introduced 4 codes. And the idea of bringing these 4 labor codes is basically to simplify. So there are 2-3 things. If you look at, we always talk about the complexity of business in India. There is no ease of doing business in India, and we keep on talking about that. So government has tried to bring in simplicity, simplified structure. It has tried to create a structure where technology can be used. It has tried to bring in where compliance is easy, monitoring is easy, and there is more equity among various kind of things. Because see, fact remains that there are some companies which have also tried to play within those legalities and try to cut the corners a little. So these were the 4 codes. One code is code on wages, then which has 4 acts under it. So basically, it was notified in 2019 as an act. So it's already there. It's just that the second part of it, when we make it operational, there is a set of rules that come in. So those rules are awaited, but it should be there anytime now. So my guess is, or maybe my guess is what everyone's guess is, perhaps 1st of April is the date when it should be effective. Now, the code on wages has 4 acts into it: Equal Remuneration Act, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Wages Act, and Payment of Bonus Act. So these are the 4 acts that have got into it. I think I will just highlight 1 or 2 key big things because you touched upon form structure and all. One big area is in the codes, the definition of employee is new. So some people who were not perhaps covered under the definition of employee, now they get covered under that. That means certain provisions will get applicable to them. So that's a big change because see, the biggest change comes with the applicability, the coverage. The second big change is the definition of wages. Now, what happens is there were multiple acts and they had different definition of wages. So gratuity defined wages in a different way, PF Act defined in a different way, minimum wages defined in a different way, and it was too complex. Now, what government has done away with all these definitions. There is only one definition of wage. Now, obviously, when there is 1 versus maybe 5 or 6, whatever, there is going to be a slight difference, which means if we perhaps just continue the way we are, again, there's no harm because the definition of wage is defined. Whatever salary structures are there, there may be certain implications based on that. There may be some financial part, some kind of other things. The second part is if we think that there is a little bit of way to really start aligning more towards it, then it will be better in terms of compliance, and maybe sometimes the financial implications may be little lesser. So it may actually we start moving to a more easy structure which government is proposing. So
basically, that kind of a thing where your number of allowances reduced to less than 50%. In that sense, one major implication that ways, right? Is what I was hearing.
Yeah, actually, the definition of wages is slightly tricky this time because there are 3 parts to that definition. One is the sort of overall inclusion, then second is exclusion, and third is a rider to the exclusion. So it plays with that. So that's why it needs to be understood more in detail. But what it means is that it brings one parity. So across all the acts of Indian government, again, I'm talking about the labor acts, there is only one definition. So your bonus eligibility is also on that, your PF eligibility is also on that, gratuity is also on that. However, now let me add another caution. While we might try to be or tempted to do something here and there in terms of the allowances and all, and some companies may be tempted to, that's not right. The second part is Income Tax Act is different. So if you tweak too many things here and there, the implication on the taxes for an employee may change. So if you try to do too much of stuff here and there, and suppose it increases the tax a lot for the employee, and when I say increase the tax, more in terms of the ability to plan the tax. Again, nobody talks about evasion of the tax. That's not any corporate would want to do. But ability of an employee to plan the tax, given the kind of maybe things available in the IT Act. So I think in terms of the salary structure, it is going to be little complicated in the transition time. And that's where every time there is a transition, there is a little bit of change that is required. But these are teething troubles, and then thereafter, actually, it's good for everyone.
Some impacts would be, I believe, gratuity and PF. For example, PF, I believe now the coverage does not have that limit. So it covers everybody. Earlier, we had this limit of a salary of 15,000, or what was that limit? 21,000, I don't know.
Yeah.
So now that limit is not there. So and
new limits will be notified. The new limit will be notified.
Okay.
So in some areas, new limits will be notified that above what it will be applicable or all. But the difference is now the definition stays the same. So some of those limits will come in.
And gratuity, I'm told now 1 year also you get gratuity.
Yeah. So gratuity, one of the changes that some of the let's say fixed term employment has got included in that. So if I'm hiring somebody for 2 years employment, then the person will be eligible for gratuity on the proportionate basis. Another inclusion in the definition of employees is, and this is the new economy, gig workers and platform workers who work on our platform. Now, how it pans out is something we need to, I think some of those rules will clarify. So I think it will be a little difficult to really clarify some of those things at this stage. But broadly, I can talk about that if we want to look at these codes, the two important things to look at is definition of employee and definition of wages. Now, there are a lot of other processes that are changing, and maybe I can highlight one or two. One of the processes, any employee exiting the company, whether terminated or voluntary, the settlement has to be done within 2 days of the last working day.
Yeah.
Now, so there is a lot of sort of social security also built in. I'm not talking about now only a code of wages, but I'm talking about all 4 codes put together. There is on social security, the kind of maybe health and working conditions and all. But point I'm trying to say is there are many other rules.
And this rule specifically has a huge impact because it is beneficial for the employee. But the point is, if somebody has not done clearances, for example, if somebody is in a remote location, laptop has not come, you still have to do the FNF, things like that.
So I think that's the part we need to figure out how will that be done, and maybe I don't know to what extent some of the rules will help in deciding that. But mostly, what happens in every act that we see, act is more of the philosophy and the way forward and all. The rules define the internal processes.
Kind of they vary from state to state,
and some of the areas may be concurrent. Center and state together, but some areas may be with the state to be able to frame. Because what happens, center frames the central rules. Mostly state rules are almost in alignment with maybe minor modifications here and there. The other big part for the wages is that there is a national level floor minimum wage. So there is a national level floor minimum wage. States can fix minimum wage above that, but not below that for various kind of employment. So I think these are some of the highlights. But again, like I said, it's a very, very big topic and lot more compensation, HR, financial, legal. There are a lot of those aspects as well. But it's a very, very interesting topic.
From an employee point of view, immediate salary structure changes because, one thing is, of course, the first thing when I heard the notification that, okay, let me check whether my employee salaries are 50% basic or not. Thankfully, because right from the beginning, PF rules had been coming and PF judgments had been coming that you cannot be less than 50%. I had kept it as 50%, but I think companies have gone below 50% in terms of basic. So for them, they have to bring it back to 50%, right?
So, what you are saying is right, but that's what I would again caution about. Because this is an assumption of 50% of CTC. No act defines CTC. CTC
salary.
So CTC is a corporate term. So we need to look at all our allowances with the I would say, in the eyes of that definition, and
Yeah.
don't decide what is, even if you want to use term CTC, what does that CTC mean for my company?
Yeah. One can always put them as benefits and give them a value and not add them up.
Yeah, that's why if you really look at it, the definition is like that. The definition, see, of late, if you really look at even income tax related definitions and these definitions, I think they are being drafted smartly. So first they say everything is inclusive, then they specify what is exclusion. So thereafter you keep on terming, naming, do whatever, but fact is that is under inclusion unless specifically excluded. So let's put it this way: in legal terms, unless something is expressly excluded, till that time it is an inclusion.
Yes. So coming to that, the income tax, now the budget is due in 2 days. You have any forecasts for and that's another thing which employees look forward to very eagerly, saying, okay, my God, I mean, something is happening there for my benefit.
No forecast. We just hope that it is not going to be tough to salaried class. I know. See, everybody knows that it has been a tough year for the government in terms of the money, but hope it doesn't get passed on to the salaried class. Reason being, it may be a self-defeating kind of thing, because if that happens, the buying goes less, and that economy cycle again starts getting into that. But this is all everyone's hope and things. I think we have to wait for 2 days to really get the details. So I won't dare any attempt to forecast anything there.
So tell me, Vipin, you've spent a long time in compensation and you also did Asia Pacific. How does India stand vis-a-vis other countries in the Asia Pac region in terms of structures? Are they more complicated, less complicated? And also, corollary to that, compensation, since you headed at such a senior level, what is the, you can say, scope for a person who's joining HR in terms of career and compensation? So 2 questions there.
Okay.
And we just have 7 minutes.
Yeah, no, I will try to wind up. I don't know if there is any question from the audience, but
sorry. I mean, my mistake. From the audience, if there is any questions, please put it in the chat. We'll be happy to take it. And I will cut short my question and we will take that off. I think that will be more
fun. So I will try to be very quick on your question. So one, I would say, mostly Asian countries have quite complex structures generally. But if you compare with, say, US and all, their structures are very simple. There is a base kind of salary, there is a incentive, and sometimes for senior level there is a stock and all, but very, very fairly simple structure, some benefit. India has a complicated structure. Some of the Asian economies have also, again, various kind of allowances, especially for the manufacturing side, more allowances, but still there are a lot of allowances. I think some of that also has to do with the condition of economy and what government wants to promote. So, and again, that's my interpretation, that let's say if housing is a challenge in India or any other growing economy, government may want to give incentive for people to build houses and maybe rent out or something. So that's why you give a tax break, and that's why you add a component, right? So the more you have various areas where the government wants to push, government wants to give you some kind of incentive in terms of the tax breaks or something, and that's why you create complicated structure while aligning to that in a way. So most of the Asian countries have very similar, even though I would say Indian structure is quite complex, but they do have some components, unlike maybe US kind of structure. I think in terms of other areas, Asian countries also, I won't say India versus Asia, but I would say mostly Asia versus maybe US and all. The prevalence of variable pay is more in Asian countries at junior level.
Oh, okay.
Mostly at in, let's say, US and all, mostly the variable pay is not at junior level. They have only fixed pay. Because their variable pay generally is considered in real form as a bonus, that it is an extra, something beyond salary. Because we work on CTC concept, so for us it is all together. But mostly the prevalence of bonus is more here. So that's one of the key difference in Asian countries versus US and all. But India versus other countries, I think not many other areas. It's just that regulations, sometimes the government regulations are certain slightly different country to country, and those interventions keep on coming in. I will just take a pause if there is any question from
there is a question from Vinod. He's saying, when you apply as an expat in GCC or other regions, there are other factors also included, like school, medical insurance, rental, home trips. Is this a practice or is it a law?
Okay, see, I would put it this way that expat compensation is a completely different.
GCC, this thing he's saying, GCC and regions mostly, yeah. So typically, they also say home trips, right? You can go home once or twice, once a month, kind of a thing, back to India, or things like that. And then medical and school. So I think Middle East countries and others, right?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, see, expat compensation or whatever, when we talk about cross-country structure, see, there are certain things which are in any case required. Now, unless you localize. So there are two ways of having a foreign person. Either you localize the
Talking
certificate.
about us doing it in these countries. So when you apply as an expat in GCC or the other regions, these are the things that we get. So are they practices or are they rules in those?
That's what I'm saying. So see, you don't perhaps apply as an expat. Company will send you as an expat or localized.
Correct.
So if company has decided to send you as an expat, the typical idea behind expat is it's a short-term assignment, right? It could be 2 years, 3 years, but it's a finite term assignment, right? And in that case, every company will still give you all those expenses, because otherwise you are incurring all these expenses here. So there is no way your salary will be enough for you to be able to take care of expenses there. That's one. The second part of legality, how it comes is, sometimes in some of these, again, these countries also have some kind of barrier for entry of foreigners. So they would say, for example, foreigners are not allowed unless there is a threshold of salary which is above a threshold and certain other things. Because what happens otherwise, it's a attack on the local employment for these countries.
Correct.
Who is an expert and who is above those levels and all. So companies have to match that level also, cross that threshold also. So there are two big factors that come in place. So there may not be a legality in terms of what expense you have to pay or not, but it is more in terms of, if you want to make it work, there are otherwise no one person will not go, second the person will not be able to sustain, and then sometimes the local limits, the person will not, and we have also seen situation where sometimes company had to increase the salary of a person at that point of time, even though he was earning a salary at the home country also. So because it was not crossing that threshold level. So I think
it could also be because of the fact that these things are given as benefits rather than actual compensation. Is that could be it?
See, okay, I would put it this way. That's why it doesn't fall in the traditional, I would say, bouquet of that compensation, because see, this is primarily termed more to defray the expenses being incurred by being at a different location than your home country location. So in a way, it's more of a neutralization of those additional expenses, and not really an add-on benefit that is being given to you in a way.
Sure.
Right? You're trying to neutralize the expenses of a person. Again, I'm just trying to be short in terms of things.
I see the timer running. I think this recording is going to go to a close in 15 seconds. So we're already touching 5 o'clock. So thanks. I would like to thank.
It'll continue, Shantanu. It won't stop on its own.
It won't stop? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
As long as I was like, he's the platform owner. So fine. So in that case, if there's any other question, plus I think we still missed the careers and compensation part.
Maybe I will just answer that by the time if there is another question. So I would put it careers and compensation again. There are 2-3 things. One is definitely if somebody wants to be only in compensation field. So if it is only in compensation field, yes, for bigger companies and specifically multinationals and big conglomerates, the compensation itself is a specialized area, but it won't have too many people. You cannot have a 50-member compensation team, right?
Yeah.
So it will be a very small department. Typically, sometimes in a region, there could be 1 or 2 people only for compensation.
So your Asia Pacific team in Honeywell was how big?
We were about, at the time, could be around 7 to 8 for 16 countries.
Wow.
And which included big countries like India, China, and all, right? So but what I'm trying to say is typically this will be a smaller team because this is the center of excellence. Now, in the smaller teams, there could be different kind of roles that people will have in a multinational kind of scenario. One, you could be a regional person. So you could be a regional CNB person. So you take care of, let's say, Asia Pacific, or you take care of a country, which could be horizontal. The second, you could be a vertical compensation person. So here you are aligned to a business. Let's say one company is into R&D and manufacturing and sales. You could be sales group related comp person because you excel in that, right? And then you could be functional. Functional could be, let's say you are a benefit specialist, or you are a executive comp specialist, or you are a sales comp specialist. So typically, because these COEs will have a combination of all 2-3 different kind of roles. So somebody who wants to be only in comp, that's where the further division comes in, but it's almost like going too deep. Now, not many companies will offer that, because you have to be really big company to be able to offer these specialized roles in a comp kind of environment. However, I would put it this way, that in terms of the career, yes, I would say that people who are in HR generalist role also, if they get a stint of an year or two, I think it will add a huge value to their overall way they will look at things, the way they take some decisions and all. It will definitely enrich them in a very big way. Very big way.
Yeah, it's like being, I mean, getting that perspective, which you generally don't tend to, focus on. Okay, there is a logic and a strategy at a organizational level behind almost every decision or component in your compensation.
Yeah.
So that ways.
Fine. I used to joke around. Is there any question? Otherwise, I will take maybe another.
No question as of now, unless somebody wants to write in right now. Yeah.
I used to joke around because people used to ask, okay, in HRG role and the compensation role, what is the difference in terms of the typical interaction? So what happens? HRG role, you are almost talking to people every second minute, right?
Yes.
In comp role, you are typically sitting in a corner and you talk very, very less.
It's like a finance.
Interaction goes down, right? Interaction goes down. But and gets too limited people. So very few people with whom you are talking. Generally, there might be senior people, but very few people. So I used to tell them that, see, when I was in HR role as a HR journalist, I used to get maybe 100 mails a day. Out of 100 mails, maybe 60 mails I could answer in 2 minutes. You look at it, okay, you send a mail back, and maybe 20, 30, you may take 10 minutes to respond, some work, some you will do the same. In comp, instead of 100, I used to get 10 mails only. But every mail would take me at least 2 hours of work, and some may take few days of work to be able to respond. So the number of mails got less, but the detailing of answer of every mail had gone so deep. And that's where the difference I've seen on both sides. But I think it lot depends on the, I would say in terms of the career, it lot depends on the person's own aptitude, the familiarity with the numbers, comfort with the numbers, and get that kind of details and all, and ability to sometimes work not with too many people around, because if you're
numbers,
person, you feel sometimes bad, a little alone.
Yeah. In fact, my boss in Daksh was, and our common boss was an IIT-IIM guy. And the first question he asked me in the interview was, what statistical tool do you use to measure benchmark compensation? So, Vipin, can you answer that question?
No, I won't answer that question now. The time is over. Okay. But I think I will just answer one part, because I think this is very important, and just one part on that thing, because this is always a confusion. People ask, what should we use, median or mean? Right?
Median, yeah.
So why average? Why median and why not mean or average?
In fact, mode is also there. So I mean, between mode, median, mean, the only reason why I feel median should be there, because the middlemost number, and in mean, what will go, if somebody is an extreme, the average will move. So it will not be middlemost. You could be skewed. Median is a good number, because
you're bang on. But I think this is one of the biggest thing that I have always found people not understanding. So I would actually say, for a moment, forget about the career, like say Excel sheet and this and that. I think some of the basic concepts that why something is required and all is good enough. And these days, I would say for somebody who is even maybe a little jittery about, can I do this role if I'm not too much into this? It doesn't matter, because there are tools available for everything. We have excellent HRMS, we have excellent kind of technology available for everything. I think the point that we need to understand a little more is in terms of the ability to understand and the application part of it, because data on its own doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
We have to relate to it and work on it. Yeah. Okay, any question? Because I know we have also exceeded time. Sorry, I'm just...
Vinod, Garima, Anshul, I see there. Anything else you would like to ask? Gaurav, you want to add something to it? Gaurav, anything?
No, all right.
Cool. So anyway, we've overshot time, and thank you so much, Vipin. I think this was a very enriching, 1 hour session that we had, and a lot of people who will later see it on YouTube and who would have been seeing it live on LinkedIn would be, I'm sure, better off in terms of their knowledge about compensation, and will appreciate the depth which this whole subject has behind it. So, and there is a lot of curiosity behind it. I'm sure people will now have some more knowledge about it. So thank you so much, Vipin, and thank you, Gaurav, for, as usual, being my co-host on this. And thank you for giving us the platform of SuperPro to, get such amazing people in human resource. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And I think it's always a pleasure interacting and talking. And it's, I think the idea is always that you just share thoughts. See, and I always keep on talking about, there is so much available on Google. Anytime you can talk.
Yeah.
But it's just more about, you just share thoughts and views, and sometimes some of those things resonate, some may not resonate, and that's where the idea is that it always enriches a little bit. So I also like it, because I also get a lot of enrichment back when we are discussing.
Yes.
And that's the key to this. So really, thanks a lot for inviting me for this forum, and really look forward to keep on interacting, and maybe
we will call you again, because you have such a wealth of information. So next time, another topic, which we can take up and talk about in detail.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vipin. Thanks a lot, Shantanu. And Vipin, I really feel I'm just trying to speak on behalf of the startups, but I really see this is a topic which took me a lot of time, even in my previous startups, just trying to understand, okay, it's not just about the money. There is much more to it. I think maybe next time, Shantanu, we can see that we can do it in a way that's if Vipin agrees to it. I think something which is more around startups, and then we can circulate it within the startup community specifically to get more fun. Because I know personally this is a topic which is very, very I say it's less understood as well as misunderstood. Yeah.
Okay. That is one area, and what probably around, and sometime probably around April, once Wage Code gets notified, that's something which a lot of people will want to know. I know you're very busy the next 3 months with your assignment, that, but that's another session which we can do, and just explaining the Wage Code. That itself is a
more than happy. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Everybody in the audience.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Vinod. Yeah, bye.